So, hello everybody. We are going live tonight on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and yeah, both of our Facebooks. My personal Facebook and also our ATFJ Facebook. So, yeah, if anyone is on, I've got a guest on tonight, which I'm excited for. She should be jumping on shortly. My friend Rockett from the Northern Territory. She's a pretty cool lady, got a cool story to tell. So I'm excited to have her on. We've been planning to do this for a while. So it is exciting. Hope everyone's been having a good day today. I worked today with our organisation About Time for Justice, which is really important work that we do. Helping survivors of institutional child abuse to seek justice, start healing, and that's really important work that I've been doing for about 4.5 years now. We've got a few people who jumped on. Hey Jen, hey Caroline, how are yous? So yeah, it's gonna just waiting for Rockett to jump on. She should jump on in a minute. Start having yarns. So me and Rockett actually met through social media, which is pretty cool. And then when I went up to Northern Territory last year, we met in person, and yeah, okay. Rockett said she's trying to log on. Are you trying on my personal Facebook page, Rockett, or I think you're on? Are you on the ATFJ Facebook page or the? Because I'm live streaming on 2 events, and I can see that you're commenting on the ATFJ one. So maybe if you try and go over to my page, should be able to jump on there. Hey Robbo, how you going? Hey Mum, how you going? How's everything been going your way, Robbo? Are you still down Kempsey ways? Yeah, alright, Rockett's gonna jump on to... Oh, here she is. Just trying to get her on the video. Right, I've just sent you an invitation. Oh, there we go. Hey, hello.
Hey, mate.
We made it.
Yeah, I got there.
Excellent. Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just finished up work for the day, and yeah, just jumped onto the live. Just trying to hook it up. It gets a bit tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not very technological.
Yeah, me either, mate. I don't know how I've hooked all this up. Very lucky. Yeah.
You're a mastermind, mate.
What have you been doing today?
I actually, it was my day off, but I had a meeting. So, yeah, just having a relaxing day with Ollie.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been good.
Excellent. Ollie is Rockett's dog, for anyone who was wondering. He's a little licker.
Ollie a dog. Nah. He's my best friend.
Yeah. Dog. Yeah, so I was just sort of, just before you jumped on, I was just saying how we met and stuff like that. Yeah, because I think we met online, but then we kept talking, and then when I went to the territory, obviously we met up and started hanging out a bit, and yeah,
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, so Jacob tweeted me on my Twitter. I was like, who's this guy? And I sent him my number, and literally like 1 second later, my phone rang. I'm like, hey, mate. And he's like, yeah, I've heard about you a bit. And I'm like, yeah. So we just chatted, and it was like, I don't know. I sort of think of Jacob as like my little brother. Yeah, he's a legend. I love Jacob. And when he come up to the territory, we hung out a little bit, spent a little bit of time together. And like, I really look up to Jacob. He's a really good guy, and he's doing amazing things. And I'm so glad to be a part of, your life.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm glad to have you a part of mine. And you have a pretty amazing story, and I know you've told it a couple of times, but
A couple.
I think a couple thousand.
Yeah.
I think people would be really interested to hear about your story and your addiction and your jail and what you're doing now. So if you don't mind, if you just want to start right from the bottom.
Right from the bottom. Oh, yeah, right. No worries. So, yeah, I'm Rockett anyway. But I sort of grew up in New South Wales. I was introduced to drugs at a really early age, like talking 6 years old. I was allowed to smoke weed and whatever. And then, I grew up, our family life wasn't the best. A lot of domestic violence and stuff, family violence. I moved out of home pretty early when I was like 13 and sort of lived around everywhere and spent a lot of time on the streets and stuff, got into the hard drugs and I was sort of, it just went from one hard drug to the next. I was polysubstance user, and I was sort of just drifting through life with no real, I just didn't know where I was going, didn't really care. Thought I'd be dead by the time I was 21. Did my first jail sentence when I was 18 and 2 weeks. In Stewart Creek Correctional Centre up in Townsville. So I've done a little bit of time up in Townsville. I'm not even sure how long I was up in Townsville for. I have no idea. I mean, how many sentences. I did quite a few. I was in and out. It was sort of just like a game, and then I come up to Darwin when I was like maybe 21. And I come up here just for a couple of weeks just to get away from everyone. And I just never went back to Queensland because I was living in Queensland at Bribie Island at the time. And I never left. I love Darwin, and I've been up here since. Like, I've been back home and back to New South Wales and around Australia and that in the meantime. But I just feel so at home at Darwin, and I did a rehab stint up here when I was 21. And it worked for a few months and whatnot. I've got ADHD, and at that time, like, I was diagnosed but not on medication. I was self-medicating with what was back then speed and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was up here for a while. I lost my brother, not long after my 21st birthday. Like, I think I was 22. And that sort of sent me on a spiral back down into, the heavier drugs, morphine, heroin, whatever I could get my hands on. Just to try and forget stuff and that. And then, so I done a couple of sentences down in Brisbane,
Yep.
Brisbane Women's.
Yep.
Just little short sentences, but I spent most of my time in the DU because, I was pretty bloody naughty when I was in jail. I'm not a person for authority or whatever. And if you tell me to sit down, I'll stand up, and that's just how I've always been. And all my jail sentences, I've spent a lot of time in in the detention unit because that is my attitude, and I don't filter what comes out of my mouth. I like to be just as surprised as everyone else by what comes out of my mouth. So, I was always standing up for myself. Wouldn't take shit from no one. And so then after my Queensland stints, I managed to stay out of jail for a while.
Yep.
Not even sure how. But yeah, I managed to stay out of jail for a bit, and until 2014 up here, and I was starting to like get back into the drugs. I was selling gear, I was selling pills, you know, I was wrecking lives left, right, and centre, and I seen nothing really wrong with my behaviour. Nothing, you know, all I seen that I was doing was supporting my habit.
Yeah.
I realize now, you know, the damages that I've done to other people and stuff, along the lines with addiction and stuff. And it's crazy to think just how much I have grown. But in 2014, I did 9 months up here or something. And then I was released on a suspended sentence. And, you know, like suspended sentences, like they set you up to fail. They, you know, you go in there for addiction issues, like, you know, for selling drugs or whatever. And you come out with conditions on you that you can't use drugs or anything. But while you're in prison, you're not given any, you're not really helped in any sort of way to fight your addiction, to work on your trauma and stuff. I've got a pretty heavy trauma background. And yeah, I just like, you know, it's just a massive setup to fail. So yeah, I walked back out into society. Didn't like, I lasted a few months clean that time.
Yeah.
And then that first toke on a pipe when I got out was just a downhill run from there. And so I went back in and done a couple of 3 months, 4 months sentences and stuff. And then, yeah, I was being a bit hectic, you might say.
Run amok.
Yeah, I was running an absolute muck. Yeah. Running around with guns and stuff, and just had no thought for my own life or, you know, much else. It was like survive till the next day sort of thing. And, you know, I was using a lot of drugs at that time. I ended up getting, like, the first time I got done like with, I don't know, 80 grams or something like that. And then the second time, no, not the second time, but like, you know, the next big time that I got done, they got me with a fair bit. Not so much, not as much as the first time, but it was my second sentence within a couple of years. So they whacked me with 3 years to serve 18 months.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was in prison that time, I was like, you know, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I hadn't not tried before to give up my addiction. I'd been in the rehabs all over Australia.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this time I was sort of like, you know what, I really want this time to be different, and I believe it'll be different. And every time I'd left prison before, I said, oh, I'll see you next time. When the officers said, I'll see you next time, when the screws said that, I was like, yeah, I'll see you next time. Say, keep my cell warm for me. Look after my jail for me, will you? And I was calling it my jail. Like, I don't know, like, because we moved into the new jail up here, and I was like I moved from the old one, the old Berrimah jail that they're using to house the kids in at the moment. So I was housed in there, and then we moved out to the new one. I'm like, oh, my new jail's finally ready. And, you know, I was just that institutionalized that it was my jail, and I was very comfortable with it being my jail. All the screws knew I called it my jail. They were like, oh, you come back to check on your jail? Yeah, I'll come back to check on my jail.
Yeah.
But that 3-year sentence I got with the 18 months on the bottom was sort of, I guess, the wake-up call I needed. You know, I was a pretty popular person out here. Everyone knew my name up in Darwin. And then when I went to jail, I was like, well, where's all these people? Like, a lot of people owed me money and stuff. And I'm like, surely someone will just come and say hello or something. But no one did, you know. Like, my mum was rock solid for me. She made sure I had money in my account every week. She was really good. And then when I was in the jail, we started working on this podcast called Bird's Eye View. And I sort of had no realistic expectations. I didn't even really know what a podcast was at that time. so I had no realistic expectations of many people here. I thought, 3,000 people hear this podcast. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it turned out that we've had, I think, around about 500,000 downloads or something now, which is pretty phenomenal. But anyway, I got out of jail, and then once I got out of jail, I went down to rehab in Alice Springs because I didn't know anyone. I thought, well, no one can hit me up because I don't know anyone down there. So
Which
I'll
one?
go down.
Carpool?
I went to Dassa. Yeah, I was in Dassa. And I'd only been in there 2 weeks, but I'd been invited to speak at a conference up here in Darwin, the Puzzle Reintegration Conference.
Yeah.
And so I come up, they flew me up here, and I went and spoke at this conference, and I spoke for, I think it was 45 minutes or an hour, and I got a standing ovation and stuff. And, I was being heard for the first time in my life. I was being listened to. Everyone wanted to hear what I had to say. And, I was on the front page of the NT News. I was on all the media channels, and it was completely different. And I guess I sort of found my purpose in that. When I was in jail, I was always the sort of person, if anyone had a problem, like a legal issue or something, they would come to me and ask me to sort it out for them, and I'd go and advocate for them and do what I could for them.
Yeah.
And then so on the back of finding my voice at the Puzzle Reintegration Conference, then that was in May 2019.
Yeah.
May or March, or one of them, 2019. And then we released the podcast the following year, I think it was, in 2020. And I started getting recognized just by my voice and stuff. And it was a little bit weird at first. I was like, whoa, this is like, girls were coming up to me and going, can I touch you? And I'm like, I guess, on the arm or something, that's not too weird. So that was a big adjustment for me. And the producer at the time of Bird's Eye View was like, oh, do you want some work? Gave me some work doing pickups and stuff before the podcast come out. So the podcast really, really helped me.
Yeah.
And then also, they were just about to defund a program that had helped me a lot. And that was the WOW program. And so, yeah, I organised a rally on the steps of Parliament to get that program refunded because, it had evaluations done and that it had 85% success rate. It's the only program that the women in Sector 4 actually had access to. So, yeah, I organised that rally and then, that went okay, but then COVID hit and so they defunded it just as COVID hit, sort of thing. It was really disappointing to see that program go because I knew that the women had been left with next to nothing in Sector 4. On the on the back of me, speaking to media and stuff at the first conference I did, a lot of stuff changed in jail. The girls were allowed in their rooms, and I told one of the screws before I left, I said, you know what, I'm changing this rule. This is the most fucked rule. You make us sleep out in the lounge room. You don't have enough chairs for us in the lounge room. We're not allowed in our cells during the day. This is going to change. You watch, mark my words. I'll bet you a can of Coke, miss. And she's like, yeah, all right, I'll take that bet. I haven't been back to collect my can of Coke yet, but she owes me a can of Coke because I managed to get all the cells unlocked for the women. I managed to get hot water boiling systems because we were filling up our coffee from the tap in just a hot water tap, which you can hold your hand under. And I managed to make a lot more changes that I just can't name off the top of my head. But the girls that were in there at the time can name them. They know them a lot better than me. So, and then, I was really jumped back to after the podcast release and that. Yeah. So and then I was sort of I had a couple of jobs. I was working at a fish shop and stuff, at a fish market and stuff, just doing boring stuff that I wasn't really into. And then I seen a job advertised for the Justice Reform Initiative. And I was like, oh, I reckon I reckon I could probably do it. So I spoke to heaps of people. I'm like, do you reckon I'm good enough to go for this job? Do you reckon? And everyone was like, Rockett, go for the freaking job. Just go for the job. So I went over and seen a mate, got her to help me do my resume. And she's like, Rockett, do you want to like job share for the first 6 months and, till you land on your feet and, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that sounds like a safe option actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, and then, we went through the interview process and it was a couple of months and that, and then I found out that I got the job and I was just like, we got the job. And I don't know, it was just like a really good feeling. Yeah. Uh, so I got employed as campaign and advocate coordinator for the Justice Reform Initiative. So the Justice Reform Initiative is relatively new, 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 new. Oh my God, don't stutter. Advocacy body, but they were started in 2020. We've got someone in every state and territory in Australia. We've got 2 people in the NT because it's such a big sort of, we've got a big job up here to reduce incarceration. Reduce incarceration by 50% by 2030 is our goal, and create a world where disadvantage is no longer met with a default criminal justice system response. I'm all across the stats up here in the territory of, I'm Aboriginal woman and 85% of people in prisons up here are Aboriginal. When it comes to the kids, 95% of the kids in Don Dale, which is not Don Dale, let's call it for what it is. It's the Berrima prison. It's the old Berrima prison. So 95% of those kids are Aboriginal.
I just want to pull you up there, Rockett. Sorry. What did they say about the Berrima prison? Like, didn't they say it's not fit for men and females to be there?
The Commissioner of Corrections at the time said it is fit for a bulldozer when they decommissioned it and sent us all to the new jail. So then, the part where they put the kids in, I've spent a bit of time in there because I've already said I was pretty naughty when I was in jail. But, it was like the most inhumane place ever. I'm going to set the scene for you a little bit there. So you walk in and there's like metal across the roof that you normally use in cement floors before you pour the cement, like Rio bar.
Yeah.
And then there's a black poly pipe, and this is out in the yard area. There's a black poly pipe that runs, and that screws turn it on, and that's where your shower is. You got a camera in every corner of the yard, and then you step into the cell, and the cell is like something, that the older people would have grown up going into at jail. Like, it's just this tiny little cell. It's dark. The light was like blinking on and off, on and off, on and off all night. There was a sink, but the tap was broken, and it was just constantly drip, drip, drip all night. So it's like real dingy, dark, the blinking light, the running tap. You're on a mattress that's just got holes in it, and if you know jail, you know what that is. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want those mattresses. Yuck. They're the boys' mattresses. And wasn't given a pillow, and I was next to like a pedophile dude over there, and a cool cunt over the wall that I was able to talk to.
Yeah.
But we're only allowed out in the yard for a shower for 1 hour a day. And I said, oh, who's watching the cameras in the fishbowl? Like, because we couldn't see fishbowl or anything, couldn't see anything. There was no lights or anything, no windows or anything. So I'm like, who's watching the fishbowl? Oh, there's officers. I'm like, male or female? And they're like, they're male. You're in a male section. I'm like, yeah, all right. So you want me to have a shower under that in the yard, like fully exposed on the cameras? Old mate over there can just like pull himself up and look over.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not having a shower. So I was over there 5 days. I didn't have a shower. I was pretty rotten by that time. And they're like,
you would have been smelling the goods.
oh, mate, I didn't smell pretty, that's for sure. So the screws have come in on the 5th day. They're like, Bretherton, are you going to have a shower? I'm like, hell no chance. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to clear out the next block and we're going to send them to sport, and you can go over and use one of the boys' cells and shut the door and have a shower.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll have a shower then. So I ended up getting a shower on the 5th day, but it took 5 days, and it, like, my dad actually come in to visit me when I was in there, and he was just like, whoa, what the fuck? They brought him into actual B block, like where I was. It was, and he was just like, this is different. I'm like, yeah, not my favorite place to be. Yeah, but yeah. Where was I? Don't know.
Yeah.
Where was I?
I think you're talking about JRI and the incarceration rates of the youth. It's 95% Aboriginal.
Yeah. So, yeah, and 72% of people have been incarcerated before. Somewhere in the 80-something percent of people incarcerated have been the victim of, you know, some sort of domestic violence, family violence, or had some sort of trauma. Yeah, there's absolutely no access to any mental health care whatsoever when you're in jail. You're just locked in there with everything in your head, and it can be a long sentence. But
listen to the voices.
Yeah, the voices. Your only company at times, especially in the SEPCON, you know. Yeah. But I mean, the Justice Reform Initiative has not recently, released a report last year on ways jailing is failing in the Northern Territory. We've also released reports in every other state and territory in Australia. If anyone wants a copy of those reports, hit me up on my Facebook or email me at rocket@justicereforminitiative.org.au. Happy to share the reports with you. We're just about to release another report in May, on May 1st or May 2nd. I think May 1st is a public holiday, so May 2nd, about alternatives to prison and, you know, what is working to reduce incarceration. Yeah. The Justice Reform Initiative is supported by over 120 eminent Australians as our patrons. We've got former Governor Generals, we've got former High Court judges, we've got, you know, people of good standing from all around Australia, every state and territory, as our patrons. And, you know, we're on all the social media channels, so jump on our socials, follow us at Jailing is Failing. Yeah, if you want one of my shirts, jump on our website, Jailing is Failing. They're $40. Best $40 you'll spend.
Yeah, make sure you jump on and definitely give them a follow. I follow them on Facebook, Instagram. Also, if you want to jump on and give Rockett a follow, Rockett's Facebook is it Rockett or Renee?
No.
It's Renee Bretherton.
No, it's Rockett, bro.
It's Rockett, yeah.
At me. Yeah, it's Rockett with double T.
Yeah, Rockett with double T.
Yeah.
So she's on Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it.
Twitter,
yeah, that's how we met, Jacob.
Rockett likes to pay me out where she can.
Yeah. He's like my little brother. It's so good. He leaves himself open all the time, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I said a funny comment here. Oh, it's not funny. It's more sad, but sounds like more money was spent on surveillance and conditions for inmates. Extremely sad. I think that was when you said the boys could have jumped over the fence and looked at you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was in the middle of a men's section, and
what the fuck is it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just because I got in a fight or something, or might have, pushed it or something, Yeah, I'm not proud of a lot of things that I've done in my life, but the things that I am most proud of is, the last few years of my life. I said in my podcast, if I can reach one person, and I can, if I can reach one person and I can inspire one person, then, you know, my life's been worth it. And I've just, like, I dropped my Twitter handle on the podcast, and I've had so many people reach out to me, and just, you know, like, when the podcast first dropped, hey Leah, when the podcast first dropped, I had people like from all over the world contacting me, asking me. I was going on their podcast and stuff. I have no idea of the amount of podcasts and stuff I've done, because I just didn't keep count. I can't listen back to my own voice, which is a bit crap, but yeah. So I never listen to anything I've done, but I've done so many. I've co-written papers. I've been on Channel 10, breakfast show. I've just done so much. It's not funny.
Conferences you've been to? Just rattle off a few in the last 6 months. You've got a handful there.
So I went down to the CLC, Community Legal Centres conference in Hobart just the other week. I went to the Puzzle Reintegration conference over in Perth, I think last month. I speak on panels and stuff at the conferences, and I also spoke on a panel down in Canberra about addiction. That was the Rethink Addiction conference.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've done a couple. Yeah, and like I sort of like had this dream in my head of what I wanted to be doing, and I wanted to be advocating. I wanted to be making changes for women in jail, and the Justice Reform Initiative has 100% supported me in anything that I've wanted to do. They're such a good company to work for. I'm so grateful for being able to work for them. You know, I've got such a great group of people that I work with. And yeah, so part of my job at the Justice Reform Initiative is reaching out to support like organisations and going and giving them a briefing about the Justice Reform Initiative, and you know, trying to get supporter organisations so we can get a joined up effort to, you know, reduce Australia's costly reliance on over incarceration. Yeah, it's so if anyone wants to reach out, I can hook you up with someone in your state or your territory. Yeah.
I've recently been looking at the stats of the like incarceration rates, and NT is like New South Wales is like here, Queensland, Vic, and then NT is like literally like that.
Yeah. So, you know, if tough on crime worked, NT would be the safest place in Australia, because, you know, we win all the stats. We've just hit another milestone, which is nothing to be proud of, but we've got 1% of our population incarcerated, which is ridiculous. Our jails are overflowing at the seams at the moment. They've committed to not building any more jails, but, you know, I mean, yeah, it's not a good situation up here in the territory at the moment. Yeah, and you know, people are screaming for locking up people and stuff, and I'm here to tell you, locking up people does not work. Like, you know, if locking up people worked, I would have, you know, changed my ways when I first went to jail at 18, you know, but I didn't. It took me till I was well into my 30s to, you know, even start addressing underlying traumas that were helping me stay in my addiction. You know, I think, yeah. Anyway.
No. What was the hardest jail you ever done? Which state? Which jail?
It was the last bit up in Darwin. I mean, like, actually Queensland. So, but I mean, it was a long time ago, so it's not so much in the memory bank. I mean, it is. It's very real. It's very there. As soon as I think about Queensland, my brain goes back to it. I mean, we made headlines, 3 girls up in Townsville, prisoners forced to drink their own urine, because we were chained in a body belt for 24 hours. We were given injections to calm us down. We weren't given food or water in that time. We weren't given access to a toilet. It was really inhumane, and it was, and that jail, the Townsville Correctional Centre, Stewart Creek, gave me some of the most horrific trauma that I've ever been unlucky enough to, experience, especially at the hands of corrections. It was bloody horrific. And, I just sort of skip over things a lot, but there's yeah.
Pretty bad. I know you told me about what happened up there. It's fucking pretty shit.
Yeah, yeah. So up here, my last 3 months was spent in high security, which up here you don't have a yard whatsoever. You're just in a block with the same people all day, every day. There'd been, I'm just going to do a trigger warning here. There'd been 5 attempted suicides in that block within 6 months, like from the time 2 months before I went in, or 3 months before I went in, to the time I was in there. And there was only 3 or 4 of us in there, It is the most depressing place. Like you're basically locked down in the unit the whole day. You get out for a 15-minute phone call while they lock the rest of the girls down. So all the girls are yelling at you to get off the phone and hurry up. But and if your phone call didn't answer for that day, and it was not at a set time, it was just whenever officers got around to letting you out. So if your phone call didn't answer, then you didn't get another call at all. That was your phone call for that day. And you had to choose if you wanted to ring the ombudsman, which me and Omzi, we used to chat a bit. You had to choose if you wanted to ring the ombudsman, or if you wanted to ring your family, or if you wanted to ring a lawyer. You couldn't ring all 3 or even 2 of them. It was one or the other. Yeah. And that, I got put into a red shirt. Like, I was doing pretty well in prison. I was doing it pretty easy. Not like pretty
When
easy.
you say red shirt, what's that mean?
Red shirt is high security in the Northern Territory.
Yep.
Blue shirt, medium security. Green shirt, low security. Yellow shirt is a open security. So when I was put into the red shirt, I was like, what the fuck is this for, And I was like, what have I done? I've actually not done anything recently that I know would get me in this much trouble. I haven't. I've not been in trouble for a while. And then they come in, they finally told me, because I was going off my nut, as you can imagine. They're trying to make me go into this high security. I'm like, fuck you, I'm not going in there. You and all your buddies better call for backup. So my mum come for a visit, and she had a lolly in her pocket, and gave it to me, and I just put it in my mouth. And then when I did, I was like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have done that. And she's like, oh, it's a lolly, what the fuck, don't worry about it. And then I didn't worry about it. And then it was like 4 weeks later or something, they're like, oh, that's when they come down with the red shirt. And I'm like, what's this for? And they're like, oh, suspicion of bringing contraband into the jail. I'm like, oh yeah, what contraband? I'd done naughty stuff, right? And I'm not going to deny that I'd done some naughty stuff that I probably could have got caught for, but I didn't, because I didn't. But, for him to bring that up, and I'm like, well, let's do a drug test or something then. And they're like, we're not drug testing you. I'm like, why not? Drug test me. Didn't get any contraband in, and it was a lolly. And they're like, oh, well, that's enough. That's it. You're admitting guilt. You got a lolly. That's contraband. Yeah. I'm like, are you serious? Put me in a high security for that. And at that time, I dove right down into depression. I went from, getting out in 4 months to oh, fuck. I didn't even know if I would get through the day, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was pretty heavy. And having the suicide attempts around me at the time, I guess, as well, wasn't helping with my mental health. Yeah. And that's actually where I met my mate that I used to job share with. She come in as a suicide prevention sort of team. Yeah. After there'd been so many suicide attempts, and I made a complaint about, we're not getting to speak to anyone and debrief about all these attempted suicides. Like, my mate and I, we walked in on this chick who was literally hanging, and we couldn't get into her cell because she was in her cell, and we're like freaking the out. We've ran out to the main area. We're screaming, banging on the doors for the officers to come. They were down doing feed up, doing lunch. And we're like, get up here. And they come up and they fucking tried. I swear they put every wrong key into the keyhole that they could. It just seemed to take like absolutely forever. Me and my mate, there was two of us on the outside of that cell. We were just like freaking right out, you know, and like they didn't tell for days what happened. And then one of the screws come down and said to me, hey, Rockett, I'm just letting you know, I'm not allowed to tell you, but I'm just letting you know that what's her name is okay. I won't use her name. What's her name is okay. She's not dead. You guys probably saved her life.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were left for like days and days just thinking like, you know, did she make it? Is she dead? Is she brain dead? Is she all right? What? And then she disappeared off to Cowdy Ward, which is the mental health hospital up here. She just up there for a few months, and it was probably 5 weeks she disappeared for, and so it was, that was super depressing. But I guess the most traumatizing was Queensland. 100%, Queensland would win hands down.
Yeah, it's definitely different up in the NT with how things go, just in general. You know, I heard some stories there from a couple of the fellas that I visited at Holtz and also Alice Springs. But yeah, I mean, from what you told me, I don't know if you sort of told me every single little thing that happened there, but from what you told me, it was pretty rough how they treated you up there in Townsville.
Yeah. I've only sort of skipped over a few things, you know. I mean, one time my mum come in to jail. She got sentenced for drugs. Oh no, yeah. And so she come into jail, and I was actually on a section 29 or section 39, whatever it is. They just keep you in your SEPCON cell. And I was like, I had turned to self-harming at that time. I'd been self-harming since I was 16. I was pretty significantly self-harming. Well, bro, you got to silence your phone. I was pretty significantly self-harming by that time. And when my mum come in, like, I organised for her to be all looked after and everything because with all my mates out there. And then, like, they wouldn't let me out. I'm like, I just want to get out of this situation, this section 29 or 39 or 38 or whatever it was. I just want to get out of here. I want to spend time with my mum, you know. And they let me spend a little bit of time with her, but I just guess the depression and the, I don't know, shame, guilt, whatever, sort of got to me, and I self-harmed pretty bad. Ended up over in the other unit, the CSU unit, is what they called it back then. They no longer have them because of
what's that stand for? CSU.
Crisis Support Unit.
Okay.
So yeah, on the back of us coming out and telling reporters and stuff what had happened to us, they closed down the crisis support units in Queensland after an investigation. But you know, and then they made my mum go in and clean up my blood, so that was pretty hectic. Yeah, and they kept me sort of over there, and they weren't going to let me say goodbye to my mum before I left jail. They wanted me to leave from there. I'm like, okay, let me go. Whichever officer walks me out that door, I am smashing, because I'm coming back to say hello to my mum. And they were like, you what? I'm like, yeah, you know I'm going to do it too. So they ended up letting my mum come over and say hello. But, you know, it was a horrific time in my life. You know, I just felt defeated. I felt lost. I felt, you know, I don't think there's many more feelings that I could have felt at that time. I don't think there was any lower that I could have gone at that time. And then I was just sort of released onto the streets of Townsville, like, look out, Townsville. No, given. But no, I was released on the streets of Townsville from having a mental health crisis to going to the streets of Townsville. Like, and, you know, I was like, had a lot of drug-induced psychosis back at that stage, and I didn't cope well with the world. And yeah, it was a pretty dark time, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, jailing's failing. Like, you know, jailing's been failing for a long time, for too long. And it's definitely time we started changing, making a difference. It's, you know, it's time to look at evidence-based approach, stuff like the Alternative to Incarceration project that they got down in Alice Springs, and, you know, stuff like that.
What's that
Community. So the Alternative to Custody is something from the Aboriginal Justice Agreement. Leanne Little is in charge of that. It's like a wraparound service. I actually went in there the other day and had a look around when I was down in Alice Springs, and you know, it's like the women are supported. Instead of going to jail, they can go there. They get an ankle monitor on. I mean, there's a fence around the area, but like it's like you could jump it if you wanted to. Like it's sort of it's barbed wire. So basically, there's nothing holding you there apart from you want to stay there. It's a 6 month program, and yeah, so they get all the women, they get the women all the support and stuff that they need, and that you know, it's got an 85% success rate. I guess it's been open for 3 years now. So anything with an 85% success rate, it's, you know, it's got to be. It's got to be. We need more of those, and I think the government's definitely committed to building more of them in the future, which is a great sign. Something that I 100% put my name behind. Alternatives to incarceration over incarceration any day. You know, incarceration doesn't work. I mean, there's a million people who could tell you that all over Australia, how you know, how damaged you come out of being in jail.
Yeah.
And it is about damage. It's definitely about the damage. You know, you go in there a damaged person, you come out even more damaged. Prison is like going to university for criminals. You go in there, you meet new contacts, you meet new people, you learn new ways of doing things. You know, there's nothing therapeutic about it. And with the stats I gave before about, you know, 85% people have been, you know, the victim of some sort of family violence, domestic violence or something, you know, and trauma, victims of trauma, sexual assault. You know, you can't just, leave people to their own devices. You have to support those people to make the better choices for themselves. And nothing changed with me until I found my purpose. And I 100% believe I found my purpose now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have too. You know, you're doing amazing stuff. All the advocacy and JRI. It's amazing that they found you. They're very lucky they found you. Actually,
I sort
I don't think there's a better advocate out there.
I feel privileged to be living the life that I'm living at the moment. You know, I sometimes, like even last night, I was laying awake in bed, just going, "What the heck? What happened to my life? How did I get here?" Sort of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Sometimes it's just unbelievable. It's actually really unbelievable at times, and yeah, I have to pinch myself often, very often. Just, you know, how far I've come, where I am. And you know what? Like, yeah, I'm just grateful. And if anyone's watching who is struggling with addiction, know that we do recover. It might not work the first time, it might not work the second time. It might take you 77 times like it took me, but we do recover. And there is a decent life out there. I know how depressing it can be when you're in the depths of addiction and feeling no way out. There is a way out. Yeah.
Yeah. I know all about that feeling, mate. It's not a good place to be.
No.
Not a good place to be at all. Yeah. Yeah. No
Yeah.
worries, mate. All right. Well, me and Rockett are going to do a podcast. So we're going to probably release that in the next sort of month or two. But yeah, if anyone does want to follow Rockett, make sure you jump on her social media. We've dropped all of her links in the comments, or any of them reports. Someone put up your email address. So if anyone did want to get the JRI reports, yeah, you can definitely jump on, hit Rockett up, inbox any of our social medias.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
go from there.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me on, mate. We've been meaning to do this for about, what, how long?
Too long.
Probably we met, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good to see a fair few people on here that I know too. Like,
yeah, I seen my mum on before, your dad. It's good. I can't hear. It's gone quiet. You there? Oh, I don't know what's happened. I can't hear. Hello? Hello? I might finish it, mate, because I can't hear. I'll speak to you soon. I'll give you a call.